Hello and welcome to the News at 7, where we get to the heart of the day's stories and communities across Scotland tonight. Supreme Court ruling which could lead to men appealing their sexual offences convictions. Judges rule that Scottish courts are risking defendants' right to a fair trial in their approach to evidence. We will speak to the organisation which supports the ruling. Also tonight, trouble is Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer's leadership in trouble at the moment.
In this situation, it looks like an attempt to say put up or shut up, and the problem is now we're going to hear about leadership endlessly.
We will have all the sport with Paul. What have you got for us tonight, Paul?
We hear from Scotland striker Lyndon Dykes ahead of a massive week for the national team, and the latest at Hibernian as American businessman Bill Foley sells his stake in the club.
And the plans to keep Scotland's transport moving this winter. Hello, I'm Amy Irons and welcome to the News at 7. Let's start with something which could have an impact on how people are convicted of sexual offences in Scotland. A landmark ruling by the UK Supreme Court could trigger multiple appeals by men convicted of sexual offences in Scotland. It ruled that since 2017, Scotland's courts have taken an approach to evidence which risks depriving a defendant of a right to a fair trial. Victim support charities have criticised the ruling, but the move has been backed by the Law Society, an organisation which represents thousands of solicitors. Stuart Monroe, who represented the Law Society at the Supreme Court, gave me his reaction to the ruling.
Well, we're very pleased at what the Supreme Court has decided. The Law Society and the Faculty of Advocates had decided that they would seek to intervene in these ongoing appeals before the Supreme Court because of concerns that the profession had about the way in which cases of this nature were being dealt with in Scotland. And the Supreme Court has listened to those concerns and accepted them in the judgment that was issued today.
What were the concerns from within the profession? What are the things that you want to try and address?
Well, it's long been recognised that sexual offence cases are a particular category of case that requires special arrangements, and Parliament put in place special arrangements for these cases 40-odd years ago. It was recognised that particular types of evidence have to be kept under very firm judicial control so that complainants are not exposed to attacks or humiliation through the court process, and we entirely support those arrangements. What has happened, though, over the last decade or so in Scotland is that there has been an increasing reluctance on the part of the courts to see particular types of evidence, categories of evidence, as relevant in these cases, and therefore a refusal to allow certain pieces of evidence to be brought out in trials. And we were concerned that that was really going beyond what Parliament had decided. There's always a very fine balance to be struck between, on the one hand, respecting the interests of complainants, which is hugely important, but at the same time also ensuring there is a fair trial so that only guilty people are convicted. Our concern was that that balance was being lost, and the Supreme Court appears to have agreed.
There will be many victim support groups who feel that it is already difficult for victims to come forward, for complainants to come forward, and that rates of conviction can be low. So this is what Rape Crisis have to say in some of their concerns.
Scotland has the lowest conviction rate for rape of any crime type. Women regularly talk of experiencing the process as violating and extremely traumatic. I am worried that this judgment will represent a step backwards that will not only make it harder for complainants giving evidence in court, but it could actually put women off reporting in the first place because of fear of what's going to happen. And I think it's now up to the Scottish courts to make sure they implement this judgment fairly for everyone.
So that's the reaction from Sandy Brindley at Rape Crisis Scotland. Can you empathise with that, Stuart, at all, in terms of how she feels that it could impact victims or how they feel about coming forward potentially?
I entirely respect Sandy and the work that she does, and it's recognised that it is important to make sure that complainants are able to come forward and aren't deterred from giving evidence because of conceptions about what might be involved. But I don't think, with respect, that is what this case concerns. This case is focused on ensuring that juries get to hear all relevant evidence in a case so that they can come to the right decisions. There's no point in increasing conviction rates if you do so by miscarriages of justice. The key thing is that we want to have a system that works effectively. Yes, supports complainants through the process, but also ensures that accused people receive a fair trial so that guilty people are properly convicted, something we can all agree on.
Stuart Munro, it's a very complex issue. Thank you so much for coming into the studio and taking us through it and explaining it for us. Thank you
very much.
Well, with 2 weeks to go until the UK government's all-important budget and just 6 months before Scotland goes to the polls in a Holyrood election, the Prime Minister is coming under severe pressure over apparent briefings made by members of his Downing Street team to the media in an effort to protect his position. Less than 500 days into his premiership, Sir Keir Starmer's inner circle has sounded a warning shot to anyone seeking to push him from his post, including UK Health Secretary Wes Streeting, who's denied he has any designs on the top job. Needless to say, it's all led to a very fiery Prime Minister's questions earlier today.
Taxes set to rise even further, unemployment at levels not seen since lockdown, and in the middle of it, a weak Prime Minister at war with his own cabinet. Mr. Speaker, it's not just him, it is all of them. There is no replacement, it is all of them. 2 weeks before the budget, isn't it the case that this Prime Minister has lost control of his government, he's lost the confidence of his party, and lost the trust of the British people?
Mr. Speaker, the stupid mistakes were made over 14 long years. They broke the economy, and now they think that they can lecture us.
What's happened overnight, I think, will disappoint people in Scotland even further, because it's quite clear the Labour Party is riven with internal dissent, and it therefore can't focus on sorting out the major challenges that the Labour government was elected to solve.
Well, John McTernan is a former political advisor to Tony Blair and knows a thing or two about how Downing Street operates. Earlier, I asked him how and why these briefings against other government figures come about.
That is a mystery, isn't it? When staff in Number 10 brief not just one outlet, The Guardian, not just two, the BBC, but a range of outlets with almost identical wording, it feels like a concerted operation from Number 10, and nothing's ever done by staff without permission of the boss. A concerted operation to actually provoke a cabinet minister into either challenging or saying he doesn't want to challenge. And I think it's backfired on Number 10 because in the end, no staff, however senior, should ever brief against cabinet ministers. It's, if the Prime Minister hasn't got confidence in his ministers, he can sack them. In this situation, it looks like an attempt to say put up or shut up, and the problem is now we're going to hear about leadership endlessly, all until Christmas. Everything the story we hear will be in the prism of leadership.
Yeah, it doesn't look like it's going to be going away anytime soon, does it, John? And it's such a pivotal month as well for the Labour government. The budget just a couple of weeks away now. How potentially damaging is this, and where does it go next?
So I think it now gets in the way of the budget narrative. The budget was critical. Labour have been driving down a particular path in terms of trying to handle the debt that it's got and trying to maintain and protect public services. That's now been blown out of the water. The only argument people now hear is this good for Keir, bad for Keir? Is he stronger, is he weaker? Is it good for Rachel, bad for Rachel? Rachel Reeves, the Chancellor, is she stronger, is she weaker?
Here in Scotland, John, as well as obviously the budget, we're looking ahead to, it won't be long before we're actually talking properly about the Holyrood elections in May next year. There's Welsh Parliament elections, local elections in England as well. Just, if this infighting seemingly continues, what kind of effect do you think that could have on the polls, on voters?
Look, in the end, disunity in politics is death. The voters look at you disunited, fighting each other, not fighting for them, not fighting for their jobs, not fighting for their community, not fighting for their prosperity. And they go, you can go away and sit on the naughty step.
What, in your opinion then, John, do you think would be the best way for the Labour government to try and settle this down, to get a bit of a grip on it and avoid any more self-inflicted harm at such a hugely important time?
In the end, you have to switch back to the successful and the popular policies of the government. So I hope they lift the two-child benefit cap and they go out campaigning on it. There's lots of things which, having been done in the first year of the Labour government, will play out. So move back to ideas away from personalities.
John McTernan, thank you so much for giving us your expertise. Really interesting insight from you there. We really appreciate your time on the programme. Thank you so much. Let's get a roundup of the stories making the BBC News app in Scotland today. And all rapists will be recorded as men by Police Scotland, Chief Constable Jo Farrell has confirmed. She said she wanted to clear up confusion about the force's policy on gender identity. Police are investigating a rape in Glasgow city centre. Emergency services were called to Sauchiehall Lane just after 3 o'clock this morning. The force said investigations were continuing. £10,000 has been paid by an Aberdeen nursery after a child fell from a nappy table. Skye Tucker suffered a broken leg on her first day at Little Clouds Nursery. A former music teacher who taught Calvin Harris has criticised proposals to scrap free musical instrument tuition in Dumfries and Galloway. Stuart Stolley has taught for 40 years. And an Edinburgh building used in the Netflix drama Department Q could be demolished. The plans for Argyll House have been put before Edinburgh City Council. Well, for more information on all of these stories, you can scan that QR code on your screen. It will take you straight to the BBC Scotland News app. There is more for you there, including why one teaching union is balloting its members on industrial action. Now, Aberdeen looks set to be the only major city in Scotland not to host a Pride event next year. It's after one of their sponsors pulled out. Well, Louise Hosey has the full story for us.
Since 2018, Grampian Pride has taken place in Aberdeen. Last year's event here at Duthie Park attracted up to 10,000 people. It's organised by the charity 4 Pillars, which offers support and advice to the LGBT+ community. But it's announced that it won't be hosting next year's event. It says a steep rise in hate incidents mean that more people need its help and that financial resources must go towards supporting them.
We see it all the time, people getting abuse online, people walking down the road and they're coming in and telling us they're being abused. It's important to keep 4 Pillars up and running, to make sure that we're here 365 days a year to support our community. We see over 100 people every single month and we need to focus on that.
Last year, some climate campaigners criticised sponsorship of Grampian Pride by oil and gas companies. However, 4 Pillars say that's not one of the reasons why they have pulled out of organising. The charity is encouraging other groups to put on their own events during Pride Month next June and says it hopes to run the event again in the future. Louise Hosey, reporting Scotland, Aberdeen.
Now to a story some of you have asked us to report on through the Your Voice, Your BBC scheme, and its plans for 2 large storage facilities for wind farm parks in the Moray Firth have come under fire from local communities. The Moray Flow Park, which would operate off the coast of Nairn and Findhorn, aims to provide temporary wet storage for the foundation base units of wind turbines before they're then assembled out at sea. But locals are worried about the potential impact on fishing, marine life and other businesses operating near the shoreline. A public meeting was held last night on the proposals. The company involved, Offshore Solutions Group, didn't attend the event. The developer has been given a 2-year exclusivity agreement to explore the plans.
All that does is give a proposed developer the option to look at an area of seabed to see if it's suitable for them to take forward a full proposal. It is basic survey, basic sampling, which lets them investigate and say, is this the right place where they want to take forward a full proposal?
Well, as I mentioned, there are concerns about the potential impact a project like this could have, including on marine life. Earlier, I spoke to Katie Dyke from the charity Whale and Dolphin Conservation. The organisation has 2 survey areas where the proposals are looking at.
WDC do support appropriately sited offshore wind farms, including flow and any associated infrastructure. And we do believe that's vital for a balanced green transition into renewable energy. But these need to be appropriately sited and they need to be in areas to ensure that adverse effects aren't impacting marine mammals. And our main concern with this development is within a special area of conservation. So it's a protected area, and it's a protected area for coastal and resident bottlenose dolphins that spend the majority of their time within the Moray Firth. And so our main concern is this location within the SAC of the proposed development, and any impacts that this will have on the resident population of bottlenose, but also other marine mammals that we have in the area, particularly regarding injury and disturbance based on an increased boat traffic, but also an increased amount of gear in the water that will potentially create a lot of noise and potential impacts on entanglements and collisions with boats as well.
I understand the developers, the company, were not there last night. Offshore Solution Groups weren't at the meeting. If you could speak directly to them, if you could have that one-on-one dialogue, I suppose, what would you want to say when it comes to the importance of protecting whales and dolphin marine life off the coast of Scotland?
Yeah, we had a series of questions for them last night, and it was unfortunate that they didn't attend, and we will be voicing and forwarding those questions to them. But again, we'd be asking, will all of the data that is available be included? Because through this scoping and screening exercise, they haven't been looking at the environmental impacts. And then we'd also need to know more specifics about the sizes of the moorings, what type of moorings are going to be there, and more specifics about where and when, so that we can inform also to our best knowledge on how this will impact the cetaceans in the area.
And just to say, the company involved, Offshore Solutions Group, have told us in a statement, this project is at an early stage with all information available within the public domain. A formal public consultation process forms part of the Murray Park's environmental impact assessment and will commence in 2026 with due public notice provided, fully in line with the established regulated process. And yes, we are covering this story as part of Your Voice, Your BBC News. And we want to hear about the stories that are important to you too. You can head to bbc.co.uk/Your Voice or scan the QR code that's on your screen just now and you can find out more how to get in touch. Well, still to come, we have the weather with Christopher, and we look at how Scotland's transport organisations are preparing for winter. Yes, already. But before that, it is sport time with Paul. What have you got for us tonight, Paul?
Big week ahead for the national team, Amy. Hello there. Lyndon Dykes says playing for Scotland at the World Cup next summer would help to ease his pain of missing out on Euro 2024.
At the time, it was very difficult for myself. I found it very hard, obviously not helping out, playing in the Euros, which is major, but yeah, it would definitely be a highlight of my life and my career if we can do it. I wouldn't say there is any pressure at the moment. I think we've done great in these group stages. We've got automatic playoffs, but I wouldn't say there is a load of pressure on us. We're not acting like that as a team. We're all doing our normal things. There's smiles around the camp. We know how big these games are, and yeah, there is pressure on these games, but the squad that we have, the players that we have, they've played in massive games, every single one of them. I think that's the main core of the whole Scotland and the Scotland nation as well, because when we're all together and we're all aligned, we get things done.
Now to the domestic game, and American businessman Bill Foley has sold his 25% stake in Hibernian back to the club's majority shareholder, the Gordon family, after both parties agreed the partnership wasn't working. Foley, who owns Bournemouth through his Black Knight Group, paid £6 million for his shareholding in the Edinburgh club in February last year. But in a statement released today, Hibs chairman Ian Gordon said there were philosophical differences between both sides on the vision for the club's future. Earlier, I spoke with senior football writer at the Edinburgh Evening News, Ben Banks, and asked him to explain the boardroom developments at Easter Road.
Bill Foley wanted Hibs to take on more of the form of a feeder club almost that fed into Bournemouth. He did an interview over the weekend where he wanted basically clubs that were in his sort of clutch of clubs to all feed into the sort of Bournemouth way, if you want to call it that, and Hibs had a difference of opinion with that. Ian Gordon, the Hibs chairman, was strongly against sort of any notion of Hibs becoming or Hibs being seen as a feeder club for Bournemouth. So there was an amicable parting of ways, and Hibs have released that statement to confirm that.
Yeah, they've used the word amicable, but there's clearly been some sort of a fallout, maybe not on a personal level, but certainly on a professional level. Should Hibs fans be alarmed at all by this news?
I think Hibs fans, if you'd said to them, do you want to be a feeder club, or do you want to be seen as a feeder club for Bournemouth? I think the majority of them would say no. Obviously, Bill Foley put in £6 million of investment in February 2024, and there was quite a lot of excitement about that. Bournemouth have established themselves as one of the Premier League's sort of more upwardly mobile clubs in the last couple of seasons, so there was a bit of excitement for what he could do when he was in the Scottish Premiership. But I don't think fans would want that at the expense of, you know, becoming basically almost like a new toy for a rich owner in the Premier League.
There's an interesting and quite obvious comparison here, Ben, with the club across the city in Edinburgh, Hearts. They've also got a Premier League owner who's put major investment into the club. But while Tony Bloom seems to be ramping up his commitment to Hearts, who are proudly sitting at the top of the league, Bill Foley is pulling out of Hibs. It's just quite an interesting comparison, isn't it?
Yeah, it's certainly, people will be quick to draw the comparisons. I mean, even if you want to look at their opening statements when they came in, even before Bill Foley came in, he said that he wanted to try and make one of the top 5 or 6 clubs in Scotland into the solidified third force. So even that's a direct contrast to what Tony Bloom has said at Hearts, which is he's wanting to win the league within the next decade. He wants to try and split the old firm. There is the obvious contrast across the city when it comes to Hearts. And I think they will wonder, given the instant impact Tony Bloom has made and some of the signings that have been made, some of the ambition that he has shown, whether Bill Foley could or couldn't have shown the same at Easter Road.
Rugby, and Finn Russell and Xander Fagerson both trained today and are in contention to overcome injury to play in Scotland's test against Argentina at Murrayfield on Sunday. Fly half Russell was replaced in the closing stages of Scotland's 25-17 defeat to New Zealand at the weekend due to knee and ankle issues, while prop Fagerson missed out following a setback in his return from a calf problem. But Scotland scrum coach Peter de Villiers says both players have been training fully and is optimistic they will be available. There's plenty more on all these stories on the BBC Sport Scotland website, where you'll find a link shortly for tonight's Europa Cup last 16 first leg tie between Glasgow City and Sporting Lisbon. Kick-off is 7:35. And before I go, some signing news. We're outside the transfer window, but some big signing news. It's not Messi or it's not Cristiano Ronaldo. I think you should deliver this news, Amy.
Deliver this news, Paul. Well, I have to say I'm absolutely delighted to be able to say this. Our very own Lewis Irons, who's normally standing where you are, Paul, has just become a dad today. There you go. You can see him, Ronan David Francis Irons, born this morning. Mum Olivia doing absolutely fantastic. And I must say, I'm very pleased to be an auntie.
He'll be in the studio in no time either.
Oh, trust me, it'll fly by. He will be here before we know it. Paul, thank you so much. Now, winter is coming and it usually does mean bad weather and disruption for people travelling across the country, doesn't it? Today, the Scottish Government and other organisations involved in Scotland's transport system announced how they plan to minimise the impact of bad winter weather. Our business and transport correspondent David Henderson spoke to Network Rail about their plans for the trains.
Well, winter is just around the corner, and as a reminder of that, of course, we saw that derailment on the West Coast Main Line last week, caused, it seems, by torrential rain and a landslide. Well, I'm joined by Ross Moran from Network Rail, and thank you for your time. It is extreme weather, as last week, proven to be a bit of a challenge for Network Rail.
It is always a challenge, and I think what all of the data is telling us is that extreme weather is increasing exponentially, and so the challenge for the rail industry is how do we operate as safely as possible, but how do we maintain the focus on the passenger to keep services running when weather can be extremely difficult.
You've got this enormous beast behind us here. That's part of your operation. Just describe it. What is it? What does it do?
Well, in layman's terms, it's a big snowplow. So we'll look to deploy this asset dependent upon volumes of snow that we'll strategically move it around the rail network, and we'll attempt to clear snow, and we'll attempt to get the lines of route open as soon as we can. Now, this is one of many assets, and that's I think the great opportunity today is that we can show you all the weird and wonderful technology that we deploy day in, day out in order to keep the railway as safe as possible during extreme weather.
Now, some of this is about having the right equipment. Some of it also is about having the right information. And you've got a team of weather forecasters, I gather, working in your control centre in Glasgow now who give advanced information. Tell us a bit about what they do and what benefit that brings.
So we're unique in Scotland in that we are the only part of Network Rail that has dedicated meteorologists based in our control centre. So these guys proactively and dynamically survey weather patterns.
So you've got the equipment and you've got the information, but it still doesn't necessarily mean that the lines are always going to be open. We saw that last week where that train on the West Coast main line struck a landslide. There's a degree of uncertainty you're having to face, isn't there?
I think that, the uncertainty comes from the unpredictability of the weather patterns. Now, I think it would be imprudent of me to talk about the incident that happened last week. Let's let the investigation run its course. But what we're trying to do is use technology as much as possible to give us predictable information that then allows us to make decisions. One, to maintain the priority and safety of the network, but two, is to get the network open for passengers.
Thank you very much indeed, Ross.
Thank you.
There from Network Rail. And just to underline the scale of the challenge facing not just the rail network but the transport network as a whole, the Scottish Government has been saying today that there are now 3 times as many flood affected days on the trunk road network around Scotland, 3 times as many as there were 10 years ago. A reminder that extreme weather looks very much to be here to stay and making an impact for the years to come.
Our business and transport correspondent David Henderson speaking to Ross Modden from Network Rail. Well, we don't really want to think about winter weather, do we, Chris?
But we're going to have to, because it is turning colder. But let's talk about space weather.
Yes.
The aurora was on display last night, Amy, and look at these pictures from our weather watchers. Beautiful skies down in South Ayrshire and up towards Murray as well. Greens and reds there coming through. Lovely picture at Dunnottar Castle in Aberdeenshire. It's active again tonight, but I'm afraid there's a lot of cloud around. Let me show you what's happening. In fact, over the next few days, there will be a reasonable amount of cloud around because we've got weather fronts and low pressure nearby. But notice what happens. High pressure towards the northwest begins to take over, quietening things down and turning things colder. More on that in a second. This is first thing tomorrow. It's a cloudy and a wet start through the central lowlands and the south, and the rain's going to stay with you most of the day, I think. Further north, it's drier but cold, 3 Celsius there in Inverness, and some of those showers coming in on the north-northeast wind will be wintry at elevation. So as we go through the course of the day tomorrow, a north-south split with the cloud and the rain through central and southern Scotland holding on for much of the day. Further north, it's brighter, but we've got cold air coming in on those north winds, undercutting that cloud and rain as well, so chilly. And then tomorrow night, probably the coldest night of the autumn so far. Temperatures down to freezing, if not lower, particularly across parts of the Highlands. Looking ahead to Friday, there's our high pressure up towards Iceland and the north-northeast wind setting in. That rain staying to the south of the border, affecting England. For us, it's a bright day on Friday, but a cold one. Temperatures by afternoon at best around 5 to 8 Celsius. Now today we got up to 12, 13 Celsius, so feeling a good bit colder, but it should be reasonably bright, a few showers. However, that north wind really setting in as we head through into next week. The north wind are never a warm direction, so a real Arctic blast on the way, a cold snap if you like. This is the picture though through the weekend. We've still got an easterly at this stage, so largely dry with some sunshine, but the temperature's still around about the high low single digits. And then on Sunday we've got that north wind setting in, so there'll be some sunshine, but it will be chilly by day and by night. This is the outlook. Take a look. Let me speak again. Take a close look. At a week from now, Wednesday, 2 degrees in Inverness, elsewhere 5. Dig out the gloves and scarves and the woolly hats too.
Don't worry, that was me earlier, Chris. Thanks so much. And thanks to you for joining us. I'll be back tomorrow. Bye-bye.